tie-in tonight. We're doing stages.
Yep, we got one more coming in.
Still.
We're doing stages of mayfly. I think, Mick, you're doing nymphs tonight on this. And and then I'm going to cover on some more on a spinner cycle. So the end part of it. So mayflies, but I almost added in after Mick sent out his email earlier today too. I almost added in. I'm like, they're out. So I got home yesterday and there was a mayfly sitting on my door frame waiting for me. They are out. Seems really, really early, but it is something, probably one of my more favorite patterns to tie. And I think a lot of times we hear them as done, you know, when you're talking about, which again, they can be in all different colors, but they do definitely have a whole life cycle as far as coming up. And so let's just get going. I think you're up first, Mick.
Okay, I'm going first. All right. You just pin this so I could see
if
what
anybody's
I'm doing.
new on here and doesn't know how to pin, so you pin Mick and it'll stay on his camera throughout. And then Carl's got his vise up. Carl, are you tying tonight or are you observing tonight?
I'm just tying along with whatever you guys are doing. So
okay. So you're showing us all up when we come back over to it.
I don't know about that. Hey, before I forget, I am going fishing in July with Duke.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yep.
Cool.
Where are you headed?
Naples.
Wow. Well, I will. I'll tell you some stuff to. All good. I love Duke. One of my all-time.
He's good stuff. So
he's solid. So outstanding.
Okay. That's all I have.
All right, I'll start. And this is kind of a little take on a pheasant tail nymph, which when I looked up mayfly nymphs, that's a lot of it came up. I did a couple others. This was my favorite where I had peacock dubbing, and that's the one I'll end up doing. I tried with a thorax of peacock herl, but it turned out a little bit dark. It almost looked like I just wrapped it. And so that's what I'm going to do. So starting off with from Wholesale Fly Company, their Model 8, which is beadhead nymph, size 12, because it's a little bit easier for us to see right now. So, and I will throw a beadhead on it. Looking at different setups on what they do, and I'll probably add it to this one, depending if you want to get it down deep, which I will do. I'll add some lead wire 025, just if you wanted to get it down deep, kind of like what I did last time with the stonefly, but I added a lot of copper on that as well. So just putting a few wraps that way. If you, right now, like Amy was saying, the water is up at Bennett, so if it's flowing and you need to get down quick, you add some wraps to it. I think that looks good. All right, I'm going back to my nano silk that I did the 3/0 again. It helps. The only place where I actually wish I had a little bit of buildup is at the end of the wrap right here to kind of taper it. So it'll take me up a little bit, or I'll just put more dubbing that way. But I'm gonna cut it. And again, I use cuticle scissors when using nano silk because it's not silk, it is GSP, so it doesn't want to cut well. I'm just trying to lock in, put a little bit of a base down. But as you see, even with this very light nano silk, I'm wrapping, but it's really not putting much of a base down. All right, so I'll take it near towards the end of the bend. I'll stop right there. And my pheasant tail is kind of beat up, but this is still good. I'll take about 8 strands of it. And I'm going to now tie in my tail. They said about a shank length, but since I am using a little bit extra long, I'm going to keep it a little bit shorter. I'm going to lock that in. I'll even try to go underneath it if it'll allow me to kind of bring that tail up. I'm going to hold it back with a couple wraps because I do want to spin. I'm going to add some copper wire, and this is just copper small. I'm going to add a strand of that. That way it'll kind of help support that, where'd it go? Pheasant tail, so it doesn't get too beat up when I'm using it. The fish are hitting it. Oops, that didn't want to sit. Try that again. Okay, better there. I'll wrap that back to the tail. Now I'm going to use, was it Light Cahill dubbing from a little dubbing dispenser. Let's add to that. Fell off a little bit. I want to add a little bit more. I'll call that about good. So now I'll pull the pheasant tail over and just kind of wrap it in. Make sure it's staying on top. And secure that in. I'll bring it back and I'll keep it there for now so I could wrap the copper wire. I'm just going to put a half hitch in there to lock it in. All right. Bringing in the copper to give it the body segment and to kind of really help that pheasant tail because the trout teeth will tear that up a little bit. Now I will go in front. I will lock that in. You know, a lot of people could helicopter. I've never been good at that. So I just use my dull scissors to cut wire. All right, now for the thorax. That's kind of holding back, so that'll be good. As I said, I tried different with peacock curl and everything, but this peacock dubbing did really well. And then when I hit it with the Velcro strip later on, it gets nice and buggy. It's a little bit too much, but I'll put this on. All right. That's gonna look good and buggy. So I'll just wrap that in. Now I'll bring over the peacock, or not peacock curl, but the pheasant tail. Man, I got my birds all wrong. And I will now lock that in. I like to kind of leave a little bit of the tip of that in, give it a little something. Okay, so now I'm going to do a couple whip finishes to lock that in. And again, this nano silk, you could wrap it as many times as you want. We'll even exaggerate it. It does not build up any body to this at all. And if you can see it, this is a whip finish that I've been wrapping and wrapping and wrapping and wrapping, and no increase to the thickness. Cut that off. Got my little popsicle stick with Velcro. I just kind of get that peacock dubbing. And there you go. Real quick pheasant tail. Any questions on that one? No, that was pretty quick. I put everyone to sleep.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Now I have. Any questions on that? Quick and easy. I'll probably tie up a bunch of these while we're at Bennett because they're pretty easy in the materials I've got a lot of. So fun little.
I think this is a good trout fly.
Yes, this will do, I'm guessing, very well at Bennett. And we'll give it a try in April.
Yes. Lord willing, I'll be there.
Cool. We'll see you there.
All right. Nice, Mick.
All right. Let me unpin myself if anyone's got any questions.
Well, you left a lot of time for me here.
I know. That's where I was like, oh my gosh. And right now I can't even find.
No pressure. And I'm trying to unpin you, Mick, and I can't. There we go. Remove pin. All right.
I see. There we go. I see two of me now. Before I was seeing two of Mick.
Take your glasses off, Terry.
Yeah, I'm in a weird spot right now where I can't even find my mouse to unpin myself.
We'll switch it over. So
yeah,
as I mentioned, and now we got a full regular view. So as I mentioned, this is kind of one of my favorites. Just from it covers so many different things, right? As far as dry fly, and you know, if you stop somebody, what are you fishing with? It's a dun, or you know, it covers a lot of different things that either are coming. Again, my game tends to be dry flies, and yet both Saturday and Sunday, all I did was streamers because of the water conditions. But it is something where you know, from the artsy side of it, I love the look of this. It just, to me, it's just a classic fly without getting too much into some of the royals and different things too. So plus when I was doing a whole bunch of wally wings and going on that direction too, it just gave, again, one more finish on it. There's a little bit of a trick on this from, and I've got 3 of them prepped up to go. So I'm going to cover a lot of materials as well tonight. Just like, how do you pick your materials? What are your materials doing? Because if you don't know what you're using and you use the wrong thing, so you want to dry fly, and then you use the wrong material, it's not going to be a dry fly very long. And I think that's something also, as far as when you pick out your materials, what do you imagine they're going to do? And then the water test. And like I think I've mentioned before too, so my kitchen counter typically has 2 or 3 bases with water in it. And when I tie and I walk up and I just throw it in, I want to see what it does. I want to see if it goes to the bottom. I want to see if it sits on top with no treatment. So I'm going to kind of go through the next step. So we have basically kind of that emerger section, what Mick just covered in that. And then I'm going to hit more on the dry section as they come out, and then what that looks like, and then cover spinners. So spinners after it's done its business on the earth, and then kind of falls. And so, but one of my all-time favorites, and I'll switch my camera over because I figured out I was just talking to, I was not talking to the camera on this one, but let me switch that. And so one of my favorites, just from tying it, and again, I like a lot of processes on my flies, but this one, so you can see as far as just the curve of this, has a little bit of hackle to it, has the Wally wings on there, and then again with the tail sections on the back. So I love to tie this one.
Nice.
It's something, it's, you know, you can kind of mess with them as much as you want. In my experience, olive has worked very well for this. So if we were doing something in that kind of reverse, and part of it is you're actually tying the entire fly upside down, which is a little bit weird. And I think as far as just from, you know, kind of how you set up. So Dairiki, I'm just going to use a hopper hook on this one. It's 2X long because I want to build out this body on it. And then we can kind of go from there. As far as, so this is more of the mature. And again, you can tie this, but you wouldn't use this shape hook if you want it to do how I've done Wally wings before because of the bend. So I want to work more on a dry fly hook where it's actually either straight. This one, when you put it in upside down, and if you do have where your vise can rotate, great. You're going to build the layers in this. And as you do that, so right now, the way I have this laying, this is how I'm going to reverse the hook. I'm going to tie off everything. I'm going to reverse the hook, put in the wings, and then I'm going to come back to more of the traditional to grab it to up out of the way. You will absolutely frustrate yourself if you try to build in the tail, then try to do the wings underneath. So instead, put in the tail, put in some of your body part, tie it off, flip your hook. You can, again, I've got a rotary vise too. I can do that, but I'm working around all of this. And so I actually just take it out and move the hook. That's what I found is the easier way to do that. So as we're going through kind of this portion of it, then has a little bit of a bend to it. So I want to play to that bend, and I would actually use something a little bit shorter on this and a little bit more of a curve. I've got some here as far as just an emerger style, which again, you can find some lighter hooks. So this is an emerger one, same company Mick just said as far as wholesale. And you can see the difference, and you can see how it plays to the shape that I want to finish with. If I can not stab myself with it, of course. So you can see the difference on this if I really want to play to that shape, right? So then when I'm tying in the wings, that's how I've made the shorter versions of these. So you can kind of see how this one's a little bit more open gapped, things like that. So I'm not going to try to tie on this one tonight. I'm going to show you on the larger size, but same technique on this. So I'm going to start out, put everything in place. And to me on a mayfly, it's the tail. It is the tail. And whether or not you believe it has any purpose to it, I believe it's the profile. I believe it's a shadow as it hits. And we're looking for a shape to fool the trout. So I'm going to lay in my thread using white tonight because I have a solid blue before you guys all start ripping on me about using white thread. I have on a solid shirt so that you guys can see the fly that I'm tying. I'm just going to start building that up a little bit. And on the tail section of this is kind of fun because you can play with a lot of materials. And there's absolutely no wrong as far as how you want to build out that tail. Sometimes when we get to other, two-wing caddis and things like that, you build it out, you have a tail, and then you come maybe in with a little bit of elk hair. On this, moose works great to give you kind of just that definition, that long kind of wiry. You want something that looks like a reverse antenna. So moose, that's a great place to use it. The other thing is always, if you've got a natural hair paintbrush that you want to, and I've shown this before. So I took permanent markers and I section out the colors the way I want them. And I'll come in and if I were tying an olive, and I will show you. So olive, again, told you it's almost my favorite on that. I can come in and I can match. So my tail matches the same as my thread, as the dubbing, as everything else that's going in on it. For this, I'll just come in and I'll kind of grab some of these more amber and grab a section of it. Don't be shy, because you're going to end up ditching half of what you already have in your hand here. And you're working this in to play to the bend again, because once this is reversed in the vise, this section is sitting up. So I don't want it like a traditional dry fly where it's going this direction. It'll still work. That's fine. But as I go through and I get rid of the ones that I don't want, I want the impression of just that tail section coming off the back. And I'm actually going to position this in, come over, I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to work it towards the back. And I'm going to go back a little bit further than I would on a dry fly, because again, I want to play to that bend when it's reversed. Come in nice and the advantage as far as if you work with some of the natural material, because they're hollow in the center, so you can get the same thing. And I'm going to tie in few of these moose, just so you can see the difference of how it lays. So it exaggerated on this, again, a little bit more than what. Come in, same method, right? Rolled it too fast on that. Come over the top, get it in position, and then work your way up. And that hollow actually plays to your benefit, but you can see how nice that comes off the back, gives a nice profile. Come in. And at this stage right now, I could tie this off. If I were tying several of them in a row, I could tie these off, set them aside, because I know I have the tail portion started on here. You could also use foam, and not the big section of this, but see how these rainy packs, they come with these little tiny, like who's going to use a parachute that small? But you could use that section and run it in your tail. I've seen some different tails that you can also make with basically hot glue. And I've also done some on the sewing thread if I wanted these to be more extended and more buoyant on that side too. So there's a lot of different, I mean, you just go down the rabbit hole on this as far as the different styles on this. But at this stage right now, I can come in and I can just, again, whip finish. And then I don't have to cut my thread on this, by the way. I just need to switch over my hook. And I'm coming down in, I'm going to try to grab on the furthest back portion of that on the bend. And now you can see how it lays up a little bit. There we go. Now I want to come in and I want to add the body to this. And so it's unlike with, and I've done the Wally wings before. The big thing is go around your hook point so you don't break your thread. On this part, I'm going to add the Wally wings or the wings of the flank, mallard flank. I'm going to add those in more in last. You can do it either way. The thing is, if you're not comfortable with those, add them in before, kind of get the feel of how those work, and then come back and finish out the rest of it. I like to not have to work around the wings. So now I'm just going to grab some dubbing on this and on a dry fly. So if I'm going with dry fly selection, I've got my little box here, you know, I can come in, can grab any color on that. And you can replenish your own on here. But the big thing is you don't want a lot. So we're not trying to make all the dubbing make the fly float. It's more on the aerodynamics of it. And pretty much only because I just like that color. So I'm going to add this in. I've got a little bit of flash because I tend to like that a lot. So a little bit more on the synthetic mixed with natural. You can use a lot of different materials on this, kind of same process. If you're mixing your own, you can throw it in the coffee grinder and fluff it up some. And then still, once you pull it out, come back and you knead it. So just like silly putty, take it apart, set it on top, take it apart, set it on top. And you're breaking those fibers to cooperate with you. On this, I'm not going to use a dubbing loop at all. I've just got the dubbing in my fingers. I'm going to kind of go up and I'm going to pull those first little bits out. And when I do this, it creates as if I'm making my own yarn. So I'm just going through, and I know I can go thicker towards the bottom or towards my bobbin. And so now, and I can layer it. And typically when we end up seeing folks who are newer to this, they think they need to get it in all on one pass. And they tend to add too much, but you can see that was kind of an even, took it all the way up. I know on the build on that, I want a more thick on the thorax area so I can come back. Don't like what that one did. Or you just can cut it out. And I can come back in now and I can add. So instead of trying to build the taper on your first go, especially if you struggle with dubbing, just be patient, go back a little bit at a time. Now I can build up. In there, and you kind of create that taper as well. So now on the wing portion of this, you could finish this out and do, and again, this is kind of an exaggerated view, but you could finish this out and just do hackle. And it's probably not going to give you quite the effect, but it will on the profile when it drops in the water. So with the hackle portion of it on there, you know, your dry flies, I am a firm believer in buy once, cry once, get the good stuff. Because if you're trying to work this out of a grizzly pack, you're probably not going to get the ones. You're thinner, so save those for your smaller flies. I can go a little bit larger on this size. I'm going to come in more on the middle section, and don't try to cut off the section you think you need. Just pluck it. You just want to pull it out once. You've got your feather there to work with. And on this, all I'm doing is I'm prepping this now to get it in position. So I've pulled off more of the fluffy area that I don't want to use, cutting that down to a section I do. And with the hackle now, left or right, whichever you want to, there's a curve to hackle. My hackle goes towards my dominant hand on this because that's the way I also want it to lie. So I've got a little bit of a clearance in here that will help. If you are more comfortable with making a V, and when I talk about making a V, so you've got some hackle in here and you want to come up and cut, you can cut in the reverse. Think of it as a grabber. Just cut like that. If you need a little bit more to kind of tie in, meaning you're coming up underneath and it gives you a little bit more body in there. If not, you know, just strip it straight on through. Come in, get a decent amount to work with so that you can come in, grab it. And on your hackle, because these are fine flies, so you don't want a whole bunch of bulky wrap on there. So I position it in place, came one more time through, another one if you want to, and I come behind. So my hackle's laying almost perpendicular to me. And then I'm going to get it back out of the way because I don't want it right now. And now I'm going to go into the Wally wing portion of it. So I've got a whole bin of flank. Yes. And the flank feathers you can pick again. As I said before, I did the green olive works for me. $1.50 for an entire bag. You can find them a lot of different places. You can find them in Cabela's for like this whole enormous bag. It is, you're going to probably not use a lot of them, but you want to go through and you want to be able to have enough to select from. So on this, and again, just pulling it straight from a pack. So you pull out these feathers and you have everything and you have no idea which one do I use? Where do I start? Well, this little guy, he's going off to the side, not in the trash. He's going off to the side. I'm looking for straight as far as the line, and I'm looking for less on this fuzz. So you can see kind of the two differences here. And for this portion of it now, I'm going to start working it. It's like trying to separate out a colic, right? So you pull it. I've got a V that's starting in here, and now I have something to kind of work with. So on this portion of it, I'm going to separate that out. I'm going to come up here now, and I'm going to measure, because again, flies are about proportion. And I'm going to, and you come in and you're trying to stay on the same line here. And it will end up like bugging you if you miss one. You'll come back in, and whether or not with your bodkin, you'll try to get that one errant one that doesn't want to. So I've got these two parts separated at this stage. And this next section is where I'm going to create the wing. So I don't want all this other. That's why I ended up kind of separating it the first time around, get the measure on here. And then this next portion of it, I actually just want to pull and get rid of. And easier said than done there. There we go.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, I guess. All right, so there you can see again, as far as the separation. So I cleared that whole back half. I have the front portion of it. And the trick, I think, with Wally Wings, if you decide to go this direction, is all on the prep. So I've created the up V. I've got this down angle here. And now I'm actually going to crease it. The feathers have an incredible memory to them. So I can create that V. And this is not for the heavy-handed. This is not for fast, because the feathers will know it. And that's one of the things too, that as you come in, and again, I've got this all upside down. This might be something where you pull in Jim Stanley's wonderful, the earring backs to use that. Go raid your wife's earrings, and don't tell her that I told you to do that. But earring backs, as far as not grabbing yourself with this, because you are working on the reverse. So now I'm going to come in, and the positioning on this is a little bit of it's not the easiest fly. You'll be very happy once you do it, but I'm going to come in and I'm going to lay this stem, if you will, over one side. I'm going to pinch these up, and I'm going to come in and position where I want it on this. And same, so I come over, I position that as far as my wings, come in again, and I'm going to lift in front. And so just like a thread dam for anything else, some people leave these on. If you're doing a traditional like dry fly, you can leave these. But right now we're just going to come in, we're going to clear all that because we don't need it. It's not part of it. If you don't want to, again, your hackle, you need to make sure that's moved out of the way. So now when you get ready to pull these, if you yank on those, they're broken. This is a very, very thin, but it actually has cores to it. So I'm going to pull from this section, and I'm going to pull straight down, and there we went. So we're going to try to recover that one again. You guys have seen me do this a dozen times, but you're pulling it and you can see it's like kind of peeling a banana, but you can pull it aside. And then on this other side towards me, if it's easier to position your vise towards you when you do that, again, that's why they move. But you can come back in, and again, straight up and down, pull it straight down towards, do the same exact thing. And you're pulling it off of that quill and separating it. Once you get that separated out, pull this part down to the bottom, and that'll help break that section. You can come in, you can cut that, get it out of your way. Well, and there we go. And you can turn the recording off now. I'm just kidding. Let's do that real quick again.
That's why I chose the easy fly. Made you do the hard ones, Amy.
I'll do a spinner next. The spinner is like a super easy one. All right, so got same kind of thing, V, and that's why I've got the rest of the fly done. If you're more comfortable tying your wings first, if you want to practice with this, it truly is. It's something where, okay, so I've separated out this bottom part. I've made that V, and you do that by pinching them all against the grain, right? So you're putting those. I can come back in. This actually looks like it has a little bit more thick of a quill in there. But because the hook's right here, I have to, different than the other ones, I actually have to go almost side to side because I have nowhere else to go with it. Put it in, grab it all, come over on your position. Come up in front, just like a thread dam. And with the other Wally wings that we've done before, watch on all this. I'm gonna cut off my hackle and then we'll go from there. So here again, once it's anchored in, and you're pretty happy with that, as far as you can position it back. So your thread dam, you're coming and see how with the thread you can manipulate which way the feather's going. Pulling it straight down. There, you saw a good peel. Okay, straight from there. Again, down. And if you yank on it too hard, there you go. You just want to get started. And there, now you have this section in the middle. Go ahead, you can come in, make sure you're not by your thread. And you have your wings. And I'll turn this a little bit so you can see those. How they come through. I don't leave on these little antenna thingies. That's not really my thing. They look great but they have no purpose when you're trying to cast them. But you can come in, clear that. My hackle, which we prepped beforehand, is all still back here. At this stage right now, if you want any additional dubbing, now's the time. So if I want to build this back out to kind of the front of the fly, this is where I'd come back in. I just grabbed a smaller section of it, a little bit at a time, put it in. Put that in. And now I can come in and finish out the taper that I want it to look like. I'm not going to just rely on the dubbing to do that, but my hackle to do that. I can come back behind. You can go just behind the wings and see how that lays, and it's nice and perpendicular. And then I can jump in front if you wanted to. I don't go between with the wings. You can if you wanted to. Come in and get another one. You can see I left a little bit of dubbing in there. So I'm coming behind my hackle here, coming up, cinching it in. And especially if you're newer on hackle, what I would say is get this out of the way, finish it out on your whip finish, because hackle will jump, and if you don't believe me, try it, but it will jump on you. So what I would recommend, especially if this is a first time, maybe second time on using hackle on this, is go ahead and whip finish it out now. I've got my hackle pulled back. I can get in, I can clear it. I think I can clear it. Holy cow. All right, so let's go ahead and just get that out of the way. But if you wanted to, you could move it out of the way. And come on in with, again, your whip finish. Come in. And at this point too, whether or not, depending on what you're doing, if you have some that got trapped in the front, you could leave those there. I mean, it does really kind of finish out. If you don't, and it wasn't intentional, just come in and clean it up and drop it out with your scissors there. And that's it. So again, I did pretty exaggerated on the tail portion of it. You could either use your paintbrush, you could go with more of a natural material. And what I like with the natural materials is you can actually break those on the water, pretty much like what you would do for maybe a woolly bugger. If your tail was too long or something, you could adjust that. And so there you go. That's kind of more of a mature mayfly, if you will. So, and on that, because I'm sure you guys are all sleeping, I'm going to do a quick one on a spinner because I love these. You can go all the way down very, very small on this, on a like a trico, basically almost the same. And it uses a lot of the same materials you might already have. And so I've just got a standard dry fly on this one and kind of size 14. Didn't do anything. It's a 1X wide on my gap. So I like that with dry flies too. Want a little bit more. And I'm not going to add in any sort of parachute or anything else like this. This is just going to be built out with more just kind of a good basic starter one. Laying my thread on here. And I generally start kind of up near the eye on this. Again, think about taper on and then where you position when you stop as far as different things too. So on this aspect of it, I'm not going to use any wally wings or do anything else with this portion of it. You can add in your tail material, which could be anything. Again, we talked about the moose. You can go to elk, you can go to deer, anything, but I don't want a lot of it. I don't want too much. So I just want kind of that impression again. So I'm going to come in, grab a couple fibers on this. I'm not going to stack it at all. I like the randomness of that kind of sporadic. And I'm actually going almost 2 full bodies behind it. Because again, this is something I can adjust. If I need to, I can break those on the end for some reason, but I really like the way they sit. See how much I have coming up. So unlike how I do elk hair or caddis, I'm going to come in, I'm going to position this around, and then I'm going to tighten. So I did almost 3 wraps. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to work. And you can see on my finger, I'm kind of working this to make sure it stays up on top so that it doesn't roll around. But you can see it gets very, very buggy on the back portion of it. Now I'm going to lift up on the front and go through. On dry flies too, some of the times, depending on which ones, I'll actually come through and I'll come and put a wrap underneath and then come back up just to ensure that my material's not going down on the bend, and that gives it a little bit of a lift. And so with this one, again, I've got the dubbing already kind of done. So I'm going to show you this portion of it real quick on here. And again, on the size of this fly, you can go really, really small. Just depends. Same technique. I'm going to pull out just a few fibers to get it started. I'm not going to do a dubbing loop or anything. I just don't need a lot of materials in there. Pull it out a little bit. And as I go, it gives me, because of the way we've mixed it, it gives me a little bit of variation on that. Come back in. Kind of start working it towards the front. And you can see I got thinner in that patch. So now I can come back in. I can fill it a little bit more on the thorax. At this point right now, I could add in either a hackle and just do a dry fly, or on the spinner. So I'm going to use in this one, and we've done this a lot as far as post. I love doing parachute flies. So I'm using the Parapost on this. If you decide to go with another material, you're not using a whole lot. So you only really need the one strand on this. Again, it's kind of an identifier, and you can see its wings. You could use materials that with a wing burner, and you could go really, really fancy on a lot of this. What I found hands down is as I go back to this. And so as far as with the Parapost, so I'm not going to cut off the sections. I'm trying to work this as I do it. And let me see if I can kind of turn on this. So this is a different angle for me, but I want you to see kind of what's happening. So I've wrapped the material around, and I'm going to come right over, and I'm on the 45, right? So when I refer to 45, that either means it had my vise been at my normal, it would be laying right here, right on my side. And all I'm going to do is position that in, and I'm going to come back around, and it's cinched in. You can do 3 if you want to. Cut it off at a reasonable amount. If you try to trim your wings right now, you're just going to frustrate yourself. On the other side, so I'm coming around the top, I'm going to wrap the material around, and I'm going to pull it right back in on the 45, meaning I'm pulling my thread towards me so that it has to line up on the 45. So everything just created an X. I'm going to come back over, 1 or 2 wraps over. Trust your thread wraps. I mean, when we say light wraps, we're not talking about light as in you're not touching the hook shank. So there I've got the X. I've created that. Now you can get all fun and fancy if you wanted to. You can go up, you can go around these, you can go around this way, you can come back around. Y'all learned how to sew on a button, right? So it's the same thing. You can do that, and what it'll do is it'll exaggerate that X. So you just gave a wing pattern to it that won't fail. Not everything's going to mash into each other. You can come back in. You can also add in your dubbing now. You see that I left these really exaggerated and long. I want to finish the fly. Then I'm going to come back and hold it in my hand. I'm going to finish it out as far as the wings. I'm not going to start cutting here because first off, I don't have a good angle on it. So I want my shorter wings in front with a little bit longer. I want a specific taper. But if you wanted to add dubbing, if you didn't pick the right color thread, perhaps, and you're using a white thread, but you want to cover it up, you can come right in right now. And again, just little bits. Doctor it up, come in. You can come through again on your wings. That again. Add again more dubbing there. You can come in, you can go between and go back. And at this point right now, you can finish it off. So that's what the nice part too, is it's a pretty quick tie on here. Everything's kind of positioned in. You can whip finish. I'm just going to put that in right there. You're done. Now you can hold it in your hand, and this is when you're going to position things up. And so what I tend to do is I first pull the wings forward, straight across, haircut. Then on the back, pull those up. And pretty much, because we've all done it, where you start cutting and you start cutting, and you're like, oh, well, that one doesn't match that one. So here, and then you can come back in, kind of finish those. And that would be what I use for a spinner. And that's all I have. That's all I was prepped to tie
When you
tonight.
say spinner, what are you tell me a little bit more about spinner.
A spent fly came here, did what it's supposed to do.
It's dead.
Laid its eggs, it's done.
Yeah, spinner is the adult when it's all through laying eggs. It just kind of,
yep.
And they're called spinners because if you ever watch them, they actually spin when they start falling to the water.
Yep. And again,
that's
so
a nice looking fly. It's a nice looking fly, Amy.
Yeah.
You know, what's fun with it is how the X creates too. And I know this one's kind of messy, but it really is, and it can go really small flies. This one's again a size 14. You can see how this could incorporate right into a trico, and you can do one with your para. It's just kind of a fun one. The tail still is the distinctive I found with that, but again, this is kind of, might have felt like I got a little messy on me as far as the cleanup, the wings, but I like how the X. So the difference is just again, from like the first style, because this is what the mature looks like. This is what it looks like when it's kind of done. And you can leave the wings longer, but I find that having them a little bit shorter or creating just that true X, that'll be a little less frustration on a lighter tippet for you. You won't have as much catching, spinning. These are not real easy. If you pick the wrong size leader on there, you're going to have a little twist up on your leader. So, but that's all I have.
Interesting.
Hold on.
So Carl, what do you got tonight?
Well, I was doing some
salt water.
No, not yet.
Okay.
That's coming. I got to get back into that. When I got to Alabama and I started tying warm water flies a little bit, and then I had to go back to tying trout flies. Amazing how bad you see your hearing, your eyesight gets over the years. But I was doing some hare's ear nymphs, just because I got a little bit inspired about reading John Gurrock's book. So I thought, that's never a fly I've ever tied well. So just been practicing on that. So that's what I tied. And then trying to follow along with you on those Wally wings. I've watched a few of those things here on YouTube, and I just haven't attempted it yet. I've got the feathers for it, but I've just kind of been diddling around. I need to sit down and practice it. But then I made a little olive. Here's my version of a olive mayfly right here.
Yep. I mean, it's so many of what we do crosses over to anything. You're like, oh, a mosquito or a mayfly or they a lot of them have very similar in that. And I would say that, Carl, what you'll find with doing the Wally wings too, they're more fun to tie than they are to fish. I'll just say that. I mean, they really are something where as you tie them, it's just fun. So if you do Christmas ornaments, if you're like, hey, I just want to tie this, sure. They're fun on that part of it with, the buoyancy and a lot of different things too. I don't find them to be super fragile. I mean, people have asked me before, well, those wings, and like, no, I mean, not any more than any hackle or anything else. But the big part is the feather choice, is that, again, we already know, 30% of what we get, we can't hardly even use, or you can make up a bunch of stuff, but, spend your time with the feathers. And I swear, I'm one of those, the feathers will talk to you. Pick, you kind of go through and you're like, no, this one doesn't look right. Yes, this does. I will actually prep feathers for Wally wings as long as I tie the Wally wings. So it takes me about 10 minutes, if that, to tie up a wally wings. I'll spend at least 10 minutes just going through feathers, getting that ready. So what I do is I prep a whole bunch at once. It's kind of like dubbing stuff, but they're just fun. And the different colors of them too, because I've done rust, I've done olive, I've done black. You can't see it on the water, by the way. Don't recommend it, but it's kind of just a cool fly. Looks like a black fly. And so they're just kind of fun. And I think it's just one more skill that you're like, just be patient. It's a very slow, that peel. I mean, again, picture in your head, you got to peel the banana, but you're not yanking it to peel it off, because then you have a mashed banana. So, and you can use a lot of different materials, which is kind of cool too. So, but that is it. We ran it almost to the full hour, Mick, without us even planning it.
I know. And it was, when I kind of did mine, I was like, oh, it's 6. It's like, sorry, Amy, you got 50 minutes. It's like, my bad. But
I had like 2 or 3, and I was actually only going to do the spinner, because I like those. And you'll see that you can do 1 string of thread across those. You can do 2, you can do the X. I've done double X's. They're just, for some reason, it seemed to just make sense for me with the pattern of a spinner. With that, again, parapost, you can use anything that you want to. Foam, that's not really the direction we're going. You can lay hackle in there. So if you wanted a little bit more buoyant, they work for finicky trout, just from a standpoint of something, maybe it has the same shape, but it's not quite what they've seen. So they work. So what's our topic for what's next week? I love when we get to this, the last 2 minutes, and it's absolutely crickets.
yeah.
I don't know. I guess maybe some, sulfur parachute patterns, maybe. I don't know. Something like that.
Oh, yes. Finally. Okay. I'm in.
Okay.
I love parachutes.
That was one thing John Girac said in the book, about where, as far as the earlier feathers, like not so much the wally wings on some, he goes, the older I've gotten, the more I've just liked parachute patterns. And he goes, I think they work. I've decided they work just as well as putting up any feathers. And he goes, I think some of the wings we actually designed for ourselves versus the fish.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that comment. And here I just put one up. So yeah, I love them. And I also figured out from these that it's a great place to figure out like your mid-sized grizzly or the fatter section of a hackle that you don't have anything to use. So this is that foam parachute, and then the grizzly laid on there. That is by far, when I throw this in the water, it's probably because all these hold bubbles. It's absolutely, I just love it. I'm taking pictures. I'm like, that's pretty darn cool.
I'll tell you what,
so,
Amy,
yeah,
I learned something new last Friday from Al Beatty. I learn something new every Friday from Al Beatty. But since you want to do parachutes, I'm going to show you a completely different, novel and way out parachute method.
Okay.
And
so
if I can get it down pat, and I'll show it to you.
Are you going to use a real parachute?
Ooh.
Close. Pretty close.
There's so many fun ideas on that too. So, I mean, definitely we just won't even go with, a specific, it will go with parachutes, and anybody who wants to jump in and tie next week. And ideally, I mean, we could get 4 tires in at 15 minutes a piece. So if anybody else wants to jump in, we will do that, and just be prepared next week when we get on camera.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah,
right.
I'll just show you the technique. I won't tie a full fly because it'll take about 5 minutes for me to show this to you.
Okay. I just keep looking at your picture on your screen save, and I think you're going to try to tell us a tenkara fly, a kabari, is a parachute. You're gonna try that. I'm on to you.
I'm
on to you, John.
And I would switch it back to my talking head screen, but my camera crapped out. So I've been trying to switch it and it won't switch. There you go. That's what you see. You notice that I'm moving my head and you'll notice nothing is happening.
I can see that. You're frozen.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, all. Well, I hope you guys have a great week, and I will probably see a few of you tomorrow night on our sector call for Project Healing Waters updates. So if you're on there, I will see you. And other than that, we'll see everybody on the same bat channel next Monday.
Sounds good.
Guys.
Sounds
All
good.
right.
Tight lines, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Amy.